Today we get to see Loki's story of how he got into the TVA organization. In the opening scene, we see 2012, where Loki has managed to escape using the Tesseract. He went to the Mongolian desert, but was quickly captured by the Time Variance Authority agents for deviating from his timeline. He is brought to trial for tampering with the sacred timeline, and we are introduced to Ravana claiming that the Avengers traveled back in time to undo Thanos' flick. Loki tries to defend himself by saying it's their fault, but TVA insists that this is how it was supposed to happen. Loki attempts to use his powers, but nothing works, so he pleads guilty and is sentenced to be reset. After that, he meets the Mobius, who tells him that his talent isn't meant to rule over others, and even if he succeeds, his life will remain empty. This leaves our protagonist contemplating. It's at this moment that Mobius shows him his entire timeline, revealing his true future and the fact that in his timeline, his mother was the only person who loved him as he was. However, due to his mistaken sending selves to assassinate her, he's deeply confused, and we see him questioning and gradually reflecting upon his actions as he views all these scenes shown to him. Loki refuses to accept it and believes that all of this is a deception. But just at that moment, one of the temporal agents comes to retrieve Mobius, which gives Loki an opportunity to escape. However, he doesn't get very far, and he ends up in another section of TVA where he was hoping to find the Tesseract. More than that, he discovers all the Infinity Gems stored in a desk drawer as useless pieces. Disappointed, he decides to return to view his own timeline. He would have reconciled with his father Odin, become a hero for Asgard, and sacrificed his life for others by dying at the hands of Thanos. While he is deeply moved by all of this and doesn't know what to do, Mobius suddenly appears and tells him that there's a variant they are hunting. Mobius asks for his help in capturing this variant. Now, let's go back a bit to an alternate universe, in Asgard. In parallel Asgard lives a girl named Sylvia, who is a Loki. In the future, she wanted to become a Valkyrie, an event that would lead to a deviation from her original timeline, making her a variant. She is playing peacefully, but that's when TVA agents show up and capture Sylvia, disrupting her timeline. She is sentenced to trial, but being the clever girl she is, she steals the Tempad and opens a portal, escaping. This young girl spends her life in exile, constantly evading the TVA. Meanwhile, this variant continued to eliminate more TVA agents and steal their temporal charges as she was plotting a grand plan. Eventually, she eluded the TVA, and Mobius couldn't locate her. Loki agrees to help Mobius find this option, driven by selfishness. In one of his investigations, Loki discovered that Sylvie was hiding in apocalypses because no matter what changes she made in the timeline, everything would still be destroyed. He deduced that Sylvie must be residing in the apocalypse of 2050. However, Sylvie was waiting for them and set up an ambush, confusing the entire team and separating them. She revealed her Machiavellian plan, which involved sending capsules that reset the timelines to different eras, causing multiple branches in the timeline. After causing all this chaos, she opened a temporal door and escaped, while Mobius and the other agents approached to capture her. At this point, Loki decided to pursue Sylvie. Here, he wanted to catch her because this variant of himself seemed to be smarter than he was. He pursued her with a knife, and they started to fight. In the midst of their struggle, Loki offered Sylvie a deal to work for him, but she refused. Just then, Ravana appeared, threatening them with her weapon. Under pressure, Loki activated the Tempad, opening a temporal door, and both he and Sylvie fell into another apocalypse, this one in 2077. In this new apocalypse, they began to escape as the entire planet was being destroyed by meteorites. They tried to find a way to survive and ended up on an ark, where they had a sort of rendezvous. They began to talk about their personal lives, both revealing that they were misfits with complicated lives. They discussed love, their relationships, and the conversation turned romantic. However, just as Sylvie asked for the device to travel through temporal doors, Loki showed her that it was destroyed. Sylvie became angry and accused him of being immature and unreliable. In their conversation before facing death in this apocalypse, they discovered that all the people who work at the TVA are actually variants who were taken by the agency and had their memories erased without their knowledge. Sylvie was devastated because she and this planet were about to be destroyed. Loki told her that there was a way to save themselves by going to the Ark and making it take off. Amid falling meteorites, they ran towards the Ark, overcoming various obstacles, but when they arrived, it was too late. The Ark had just been destroyed. Meanwhile, in the TVA, Ravonna pays a visit to the three timekeepers, and we don't know exactly what they tell her. When she leaves their presence, she encounters Mobius and orders finding Sylvie and Loki as a top priority. However, they cannot detect them because they are in an apocalypse. Meanwhile, Sylvie and Loki continue to get to know each other as the end of this world approaches us. We see a melancholic and romantically poignant scene with a neighboring moon approaching and many meteorites falling. Back in the TVA, everyone was trying to detect an anomaly to find Sylvie. Suddenly, they observed that the sacred timeline starts branching again. In the midst of the impending apocalypse, Sylvie and Loki wait for their end while looking into each other's eyes. Meteorites start falling, but just at that moment, the temporal doors open, and Sylvie and Loki are captured by the TVA. At this moment, Mobius starts reproaching Loki for betraying him, and he takes Loki to a punishment cell. However, before entering the cell, Loki tells Mobius that the TVA is deceiving them. Mobius doesn't believe him and just laughs it off. Later, Mobius tries to speak with Ravonna to gain access to talk to Sylvie, but Ravonna firmly denies his request. This makes Mobius even more determined to speak with her and starts suspecting that the TVA might indeed be deceiving him. In the end, Ravonna tells Mobius that she doesn't want any harm to come to him, implying that he should not see Sylvie. Mobius returns to interview Loki, asking him many questions about whether he's working for someone else, specifically Sylvia. Loki naturally denies it, but she reaches a point where she refuses to answer more questions. Mobius realizes this and tells him he's serious. He accuses him of being a narcissist with his own version of herself and implies that he's in love with Sylvia, which would destroy reality. Loki then reveals the truth, that TVA is screwing everyone over and the people who work there are variants kidnapped by TVA. Mobius initially doesn't believe him, but Loki tells him that he could have had a life on Earth, a family. This leaves Mobius stunned and deep in thought. Mobius orders Loki to be taken away, and as she leaves, she tells him that he's starting to believe his own lies. Meanwhile, Ravonna receives a visit from Mobius, and they are both celebrating because it seems that the mission involving the Lokis has been completed. Both Mobius and Sylvie are captured. Mobius senses that something is amiss and starts questioning Ravonna. She pretends to be ignorant, but Mobius takes advantage of a lapse in her attention and steals her tempad. Later, in a secure location, he begins to review all the information and finds files, which reveal that a TVA agent was captured by Sylvie at the beginning and says he's a variant. However, Ravonna had told him that this agent died, and Mobius has just discovered the lie. This is the end of part 1. Subscribe so you don't miss part 2. Goodbye.